Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Town Council meeting, May 22nd, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
may take a moment and ask everyone to rise again. If you're not aware of it, today's the anniversary of the loss of the nuclear power sub Scorpion that went down off the coast of the Azores, 1968 on this day, taking 99 American lives.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. Moment of silence, memory of those we lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Bear, public comment?
Yes, Tom O'Brien, come on down.
Tom O'Brien, 134 Wellsville Avenue, Milford. Don't worry, I'm not here to ask anybody for any money.
That's okay.
This is the first, second time. I'm here to speak in favor of items 3 and 6 on the agenda. First, item 3. I was delighted to see that you are considering declaring this National Public Works Week, and I just want to express my appreciation for our Public Works Department. I'm a driver as well as a bicyclist, but when I drive these roads, I tend to drive the same old roads as everybody else. But when I get on my bike, I really get out on the back roads, and I think I've been on every one of the 200 plus roads we have in this town. Most people don't realize that, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have over 200 miles of roads in this town. 40 miles of which are dirt roads. And I can tell you they do an amazing job in maintaining these roads. A good friend of mine is a retired elected official from Brookfield. He tells me Brookfield, which is not that much smaller than us, has less than 50 miles of roads in total and 1/2 mile of paved roads. So what these guys do with their limited funds. Also, from a personal note, I'm also the leader of the New Milford River Trail Association. I've spent 7 years advocating for this trail and also to make the town more bike and walk friendly. And thanks to you and all the public officials, I pester you guys a lot with requests for support and others. Nobody more than the Public Works Department. I'm bothering them all the time with questions, with advice, with requests for signs and this. And I can say Mike Sarba, Public Works Director, Dan Stan, our town engineer, are always responsive. They always return my calls. I mean, at this point, if Mr. Stanton hid under his desk when I show up, I would not blame him in the least, because they always return my calls. And they also contact me when projects are coming up. We're doing the roundabout. What can we do to make sure that bicyclists and pedestrians are well accommodated? So I just cannot say enough, and I urge you, hopefully unanimously, to support the proclamation to designate this National Public Works Week. And if I have a couple more minutes, I just want to call your attention to item 6 on the agenda. The New Milford River Trail Association is sponsoring the inauguration on June 17th of the Youngsfield Riverwalk project, and we are hoping to be able to close the road to accommodate what we think there's going to be a lot of people down there. So I hope you will all support that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Mike Sinello, please.
Mike Sinello, 39 Taylor Terrace. Just wanted to let everybody know that this weekend on Saturday morning, tentatively 9 o'clock, but I'll update that on our Facebook page when we can. The veterans will be having, in conjunction with the Boy Scout Troop 432, will be having their annual Memorial Day services at the cemetery. After they go around and they place little flags at each one of our roughly 550 veterans' graves, and they can always use volunteer help when it's available. So if anyone wants to volunteer with them this weekend, check our Facebook page. We'll have more information as the weekend gets closer. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bear. We'll move on. Mayor's comments. We're covering a lot, so let's just get through the agenda. Item 5, approval of prior minutes. What?
Did you have a proclamation?
Oh, did I skip? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over the proclamation. I apologize. Let me go back to number 3. We were just talking. I was looking at it too. So I'll read the official statement from Governor Malloy. Whereas the public works, infrastructure, facilities, and services are vitally important to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of the state of Connecticut, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, and administrators representing all levels of government who are responsible for and must design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, sewage, and refuse disposal systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to serve our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and civic leaders of this country to gain knowledge of and maintain a progressive interest in the public works needs and programs of their respective communities, now therefore I, Daniel Malloy, Governor of the State of Connecticut, hereby proclaims May 21st to 27th, 2017 as Public Works Week. And in recognition of that, we have a proclamation prepared. And I'll read some of the stuff that does not repeat. So whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, parks, open spaces, and public services are of vital importance to the health, safety, and well-being of the residents of the town of New Milford, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who operate and maintain the public buildings, roads, parks, and infrastructure townwide, and whereas it has been demonstrated that public works provides critical response capabilities, experience, and support to all levels of government and town agencies in times of natural and man-made disasters. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and civic leaders of this community to gain knowledge and to maintain a progressive interest in the public works needs and programs and employees. And now therefore I, David R. Grunbach, Mayor and the Town Council of the town of New Milford, do hereby designate the week of May 21st to 27th, 2017 as National Public Works Week. And we urge all of our residents to join with representatives of governmental agencies and the American Public Works Association in activities and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works employees and to recognize the substantial contributions of health and welfare they provide daily on a local and national level. I don't think I need to say how much public works does for our community, how much it means to this council in terms of a large part of what we discuss and what happens in town occurs through public works. So we have some representatives here tonight. I guess we should vote on it. I'll entertain a motion in favor of the proclamation. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And Mr. Zarba, I'd like to present this to you. On behalf of the town council, thank you for everything that your department does. Thank you for catching that. Okay. Now we'll go to item number 5, approval of prior minutes.
Motion to approve the regular town council meeting minutes of 5/8/2017.
Mr. Bear, so moved. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, the Milford River Trail Association. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve closing of Youngsfield Road between Patriots Way and Bridge Street on June 17th, 2017, between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. for the inauguration of the Youngsfield River Walk.
Okay, we got a second. Tom was up here to discuss that. That is the grand opening for the Youngsfield River Trail. So we're excited. Please spread the word. Come out. Hopefully we get a beautiful day. If you've been down there, you can see Tom. We did it in our bike to work. The progress is coming along beautifully. I was so happy this weekend. It was such a nice weekend on Sunday to see. You'd see people kind of tentatively walking up there with their kind of kids and baby strollers, not sure whether they could use it or not, and then eventually they'll just find their way onto the path and they'll walk along it. And it's really nice to see people kind of using it, even though it's not completely finished yet, and it's just getting better and better. So. Thank you again, Public Works and Dan Stanton for coordinating that, and Mike and all the work you do. Hopefully we see everybody there. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.
Motion to approve the appointment of Adrian M. Arricchio, Democrat, as an alternate to the Riverfront Development Committee for the term 5/22/2017 to 11/8/2017.
There second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, entertain a motion on behalf of the
Motion
tax
to
collector.
approve the May 2017 refunds in the amount of $11,111.94, leaving a balance of $2,999.50 in the refund account.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9,
Motion to approve the request to transfer $10,000 from 104131005100 assessor personnel to 104139005310 legal assessor legal.
okay, just to give a little bit, John will give a little background on that.
I can say very quickly that we've had a number of cases this year that we've worked on and successfully resolved. I could list them for you, but you've heard about many of those in executive session. There are 3 remaining that we have not resolved. 2 of them are rather large ones, one involving Litchfield Crossings, the other Still River. And those 2 specifically are going to require some more legal expenditures, and we're right up against the limit of her budget. So the assessor has 10 within her personnel side that she can transfer without impact to the legal side. We thought that would be a prudent move at this juncture.
We have a savings in personnel because there was a retirement and a gap between when the next person was hired and that person was hired at a lower pay grade. So we'll realize those savings and just move it over to legal. Makes sense. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10.
Motion to approve a request to accept a donation of 1 Froggo trash receptacle. This will be placed at the new playground at Lynn Deming Park. The donation is being given by Bank Street Investments and is valued at $800.
Second, yeah. Can't argue with that, right? Yes. I saw a picture of this thing. The kids are going to love it. It's a nice frog with an open mouth for trash. So it's going to be right next to the playground, very much in keeping with the character of the park. And thank you to Bank Street Investments. Very much appreciated. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now, Dan and Eleanor were unavailable tonight. I think we have some people from anybody from the Parks and Rec Committee here on the Linda. Yeah, sure. Lisa, please come on up. I mean, I got an email if you want.
I'm not sure exactly the questions you have, but I know that the paving is almost, if not completed already, and everything's on target. Dan have been talking with M&O, and it looks like everything's on schedule. So those would probably be the guys that know most of the information. At the meeting that we had, it seemed like everything was going well. We had some incidents with some trespassing, but that was fixed. And some people don't understand that change means not go through. So we had some elderly people that thought they could go through them and not go through them. So anyway, that's just life with having a new project. So anyway, it looks like it's on schedule. It's going well. We're excited. There's been a new addition. We're going to do what was it called again? The zip line. We approved the zip line. We had some donations to the urgent care, and so we used some of those funds. So that should be pretty cool.
You're trying to get some
exactly.
business.
You're drumming up business.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun, and it looks like the project is going well, and looks like it's right on target. So we're excited.
Let me jump in real quick, though. I know, Tom, you got a question. I'll give, because Dan did email an update, and maybe that'll answer anybody's questions. So all the site work is completed, drainage completed, and the rain gardens are installed. That's a nice feature. All the turf areas have been hydro-seeded. The beach sand has been spread. The trees have been pruned of dead wood. Trees and stumps have been removed. It does open it up a bit more over there. Numerous boulders have been removed. So if you remember all those kind of rocks in between, the parking lot and the beach, they took out what they could in there. Landscaping and planting has been completed. New sidewalks have been installed. The old asphalt has been reclaimed. Parking lots and roads have been paved and line painted. The playground is 3/4 installed but can open. I guess 3 pieces are back ordered. The new float and swim docks are delivered and installed. Boat slip docks are installed. 3 existing buildings, picnic tables and grills, have been power washed and painted. The old docks have been disposed of. There's a trail that they kind of made in there up to on the woods. That's been completed. New signage is going to be installed this week. New electric has been installed at the lifeguard building. The new site lighting has not been completed, but it's expected to be completed soon. The foundation for the new maintenance building is poured and curing. It'll be installed and then built in early June. And the donated fishing dock will be in sight this week and awaiting final approvals for bulkhead and installation from First Light and Inland Wetlands. It's really on course to do an amazing work. They're expected to be open for Saturday, May 27th.
Did you find anything good on the concession?
You know, we did put that out. I think I did sign something, so I'm trying to remember if that was on purchasing, if we got bids in there.
I believe the ice cream did carry over.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the same with the concessions. I'm almost positive that was carried
We might have just carried it over, yeah, 'cause we weren't getting a lot of bids in there. It was difficult. We tried to loosen up the restraints a little bit because we were requiring them to be there like 7 days a week or something like that, and they're not making money on certain days, so I really tried to loosen the reins.
I know at the last meeting there, at that meeting, there was no one that had put a bid out. So I don't know if it changed from then to now, but I would like to applaud the people involved. I wasn't directly involved. I was just kind of at the meetings and overseeing, but they did a great job.
Yeah.
So I'd like to applaud the Park and Rec and Dan and everybody, and as well as M&O. They did a fantastic job. And if anybody can make that opening,
Yes.
I know that I'm not sure exactly the date. Maybe you have it. There'd be a great opportunity to go down there. It's a hidden jewel over there, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't know it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have, you put on the email Saturday, May 27th.
Yeah, Saturday.
So it's coming up. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
this weekend.
What time?
I don't know if we have an official, hold on for a second. My thing is not opening. Let's see.
I'm sure they're probably going to broadcast it on social media or something like that.
Yeah, we
Put it
should.
out there.
I have it, I mean, at 9 o'clock, but I don't know if that's official. But we'll get something kind of lined up. Yes, Mr. Esposito.
I want to say how proud I am of everybody that was involved with this. We started this conversation many years ago, 4 years ago. We pushed it at the budget, and now today we're on the precipice of opening up this park. I got a tour there on Saturday. It is absolutely incredible. You mentioned it being one of the jewels for many years. When people moved to this town, there were three things they looked at. They looked at the green, they went to our schools, and they would go to that park. And that park used to cinch the deal for a lot of families that moved to this town. And I hope it can encourage people to continue to look at New Milford, to bring their families, as we all have. The addition to the fishing dock, that was fantastic. Did a great job. The subcommittee did a fantastic job. M&O, Dave Chaplinski, everybody involved with this. This should be one of the proudest moments we have in this town. Something that will be passed on for generations. It's the prettiest park on the lake by far. By far, there's not another town that has got a town park like we have. I know they're going to take good care of it, but I am just bursting with pride on how fantastic this project turned out. And with everybody, Mayor, and all your collaboration with all these guys, it was fantastic. Just fantastic.
And just to piggyback with that, with the last couple of years, and I'm sure everybody here also knows, not only with the school and the Riverwalk and now with the Lynn Deming, there's been a lot of feedback from the public that in the last few years, New Milford has stepped up, and they've done a lot of good things in this town. And it's becoming a first-class town, and it's something we should be proud of. So I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Morgan.
Two things. One, do they keep track of daily attendance?
Sure. Yes.
It'd be interesting to see if the daily attendance goes up and what effect that has on it. Not immediately because they don't even know about it, but as time goes on and people see, wow, this is really
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
And the other point, for the new people in town who go down Route 7 and see this kind of mountain that's green, that was a landfill. And it's nice to see that we put up with a lot of stuff in the town for a lot of years with that garbage coming in from New York. And one man, George Doring, said, this is not right. And because of that, we have Lynn Deming Park, we have the new athletic fields, we have $10 million in the bank, and it really has turned into, we put up with a lot, but we're really going to get a lot out of the future. So I just want to reflect on that, of why we're able to do a lot of the things we're able to do now.
You're right.
Most towns couldn't do this. They just wouldn't have the money.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Yes, Ms.
Lisa, what's the price for a permit for the summer for like a family
I think
permit?
it's like $50 for a family.
Yeah,
50.
Yeah.
big bang for the buck.
Absolutely.
To say the
Big,
least.
big
I
bang.
think we lowered the rates for a day pass for a resident to $5, $15 if you're out of state or, right? So,
That went up, right?
yeah, that went up to 15 per person.
Yeah,
But you can't beat it with $5.
no, we can't.
But for $50 for a season to bring
Yeah.
your kids
Every
for a
day.
safe environment where they can swim and have fun and
Yeah.
see their friends, it's just an incredible.
The addition of the park is going to be great for young families, and then the fishing dock and the canoe and kayak area,
Yeah,
the trail
came
now.
out beautiful.
Yeah, people can keep their things there. There's more.
You can watch your kids go to the bathroom from wherever you are on the beach because they basically trimmed all the trees up.
Yeah, and
I mean, a lot of parents were very nervous. There's no road going down the
Yes,
front
right.
anymore,
It's always been
so you had to walk your
a
kids
bad
across the
place.
street.
Yeah.
Across that road, it was
It's
dangerous.
true.
Yeah.
And there's a great ADA ramp that kind of goes down on the beach, to allow anybody with a disability
Great handicap
to enjoy
parking,
it too. Yeah, so
Good job.
it's come together beautifully. You're right. Everybody's pulled together. It's a great win. Hope to see you guys there on Saturday. All right, moving on to item 11. We're looking for an update from Mr. Zarba on the continued activity at Century Brass. We talked about this about a month ago, and Mike is kind of explain a little bit better where we are. Still a little bit of a holding pattern, but Mike.
So we go from the most beautiful places in town to one of the most unsettling places in town.
But we've made
And I get to
progress,
stand in
Mike.
front of you and talk about it.
Oh, my.
So,
Someday it will be beautiful.
There's definitely progress, though.
Mr. Misery. Well, hopefully it looks better today than it did about 8 months ago. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but yeah, I'm going to run through, not a whole lot and really just kind of open up to some specific questions from you. But we try to give you kind of a quick synopsis of what's been done and where we're at today. Our goal, really, when this project got put into its brownfield and RCRA, cleanup RCRA activities, we're looking for a clean site, basically a site that we could sell, we could use, for full development purposes. That cleanup standard is for unrestricted use, a less than or equal to 1 milligram per kilogram, 1 part per million, basically, of concentrate of PCB contaminants in either the soil or the concrete or any of the remaining superficial materials that exist on the site that were contaminated. So that's been our goal, to get it to that level. Much of the exterior work, as you remember, had been done in previous phases. So this now, we're calling it Phase 3, Remediation Demolition Project, was to basically address the structure itself, the facility, and the slab area encompassing that, about 315,000 square feet of structure, to be abated and remediated in the cleanup of both PCBs and other hazardous materials such as asbestos. Particularly asbestos would be the majority of the other materials, but it could be lead paints and things like that as well. PCB contaminants basically were produced from much of the oils that existed on the site that controlled the overhead cranes and a variety of other items in there throughout the years. That was then subsequently spilled out of some of the transformers and then tracked across the floor of the concrete. So there was heavily contaminated areas, generally addressed in phases 1 and phase 2. Those were generally greater than 50 parts per million. And particularly, they were trying to get down to at least 10 parts per million at that time with the funds that they had available. Our job was to get it now down below 1 part per million. That was the majority of contaminants. There's other contaminated materials that contain PCBs, such as caulks and glaze and expansion joints, the overhead cranes themselves, and the roofing materials also ended up having PCB contaminants in them as well. The asbestos-containing materials, many of the same types of materials, caulks and glazes, pipe insulation, tars, electrical insulators, and electrical components as well, would be the asbestos-containing materials, and particularly the roof. Had quite a bit of asbestos in it as well. Those obviously have been completely removed from the site at this point.
Originally, our goal was to mill 1 inch of the slab, and the original intent, specifications, and original intent of our project was to basically help control costs. We had a limited budget, as you can all remember. We wanted to make sure we could physically control what was being done on the site and how much was going to get exposed and removed. So we put in for 1 inch of milling. We got a base price for that in the contract. And then the remediation standard, as I said, was to get less than 1 part per million. That would require us, most likely, we never verified this, I'll explain why in just a minute, to go back and remill areas of the concrete, because you have to, when you get down to that 1 inch of milling, you have the obligation to go do verification testing. And if you're still above 1 part per million, you have to go back and remill those areas. And we had a price per 1,000 square feet, I forget exactly what it was, from the contract to go back and remill those areas. But we estimated we would have to do about 10% of the slab, so 315,000 square feet, roughly about 31,000 square feet would be additional milling. Would run us about another $200,000 just in the milling cost to do that. As we progressed through the project and as to where it was going, we had some other things going on as well, but the contractor proposed the removal of the slab in total, which provides a cleaner, neater site in a lot of ways, much more convenient to subdivide and or transfer, if you want to call it that, because there's sub-slab testing that needs to be done for verification purposes once you want to get it into the Transfer of Property Act for final sale. So in order to do that, you basically need to take out the slab, of which the original contract was not going to do. With the contractor's pricing, we evaluated a couple different options. You may recall that we discussed this probably in January. I believe you guys had approved a supplemental appropriation for this purpose. So the goal was to then remove the slab, frankly, as much as we could. We'd estimated we could get about 50% of the slab to maybe as much as 70% with the monies that we had. But there's a lot of moving components. We were able to remove 35% of the slab with the funds that were approved. And the reason for doing that is it allows us, like I said, to do all the verification sampling on the sub-slab areas for cleanup purposes. So we've done all of that. There are still some contaminants in the soil, the exposed soils that are there, but the majority of it's been cleaned. And with the exception of subsurface entities that we were not addressing in this project, particularly being the drain lines and the acid lines that existed in that building, although we could have addressed them had we have enough money to move forward. We never really anticipated we would have that money, but it wasn't our plan to address those if we could. But moving forward on the property, you do see steel sitting out there currently on top of the slab. There are some miscellaneous piles of materials. Most of that came from the loading docks, the concrete side of the loading docks, and I believe a little bit of sand that still is to be cleaned up by the contractor as well. That was taken out of some of the pickling pits and areas like that. We have I guess I'll call it an application, for lack of a better term, to EPA for completion of the removal of the steel. There's some test results that we've submitted to them, along with the whole plan, I guess I'll call it, that TRC has put together on our behalf as to the testing samples that we received, the protocols behind the testing, and how it was achieved, and of course what all the results are and what they really mean. We're waiting for their approval on that plan so that we can move forward with basically what amounts to about a $312,000 credit for the project, of which we've been unable to obtain yet. But if we can get the contractor back on site and they have the ability to remove all of the steel, or at least the majority of the steel that's there, that equates to about a $312,000 credit back to the town. And of course, we would look to basically reinvest that in other parameters on the site that still need to be done. I just mentioned one of them about the cleanup of the soil in the woodshop area. That still is basically between 1 and 10 parts per million. There are a couple hits over 10. Nothing, I believe, that's above 20 right now. I believe actually I should have to put this up first. quick graph sketch of the building, basically. I mentioned 35%. I don't know if that's going to stand for me there, but I want to pass them around. The orange highlighted area is basically the area of the slab that we removed. To date, it's the front third of the building, basically the Housatonic Ave side of the building, that's been removed. You do see the foundation still sticking up there. Those are not contaminated though, and certainly don't pose a problem for anybody looking to use any part of that site in the future. From a real big obstacle point of view, they don't have to do any cleaning on them. They don't have to do anything but crush them in place, dig them up, whatever they want to do. For those areas, there's no cleaning to be done on them. So the other drawing that Frank just pulled out there, the orange highlighted area, and that represents the area physically cleaned of all the soils and all that stuff. So you can kind of see the difference between the two of those. But that's verified clean at this point in time. The other one's excavated, and there's some additional cleanup to be done on the soils there. And then we would propose to do the acid and drain lines preferably in the front third of that building, with any remaining funds that we have. So these would be in order of priority that we put them in. I should say me and TRC. I really haven't briefed the mayor too heavily on this. I think I've updated him a little bit on it, but maybe not so specific as this. When we start getting credit back for the steel, we would propose to clean up basically the remaining soils in that front third, remove any drain and acid lines that we can in that front third of the building. And if there's still money remaining, remove and clean the soil in any of the additional slab that we can get with the remaining funds. So we can expand that 35% to say 50 or 60% as we'd originally anticipated. There's other future projects that we need to consider and do cleanup on. Again, under our RECRA application, I believe we had 20 years to complete this. That would be basically 2020. This project started originally in the year 2000. We need to basically finish cleaning the slab, if it's not already done at that point in time. There's other closure activities that we need to do on the rest of the site. I mentioned many of them already, the drain and acid lines. Anything that's external to the building as well, that would include. And frankly, one of the biggest ones that we have outstanding here is that there's an outfall on the Housatonic Ave side, river side of the road of Housatonic Avenue, that has sediment contamination in it. That's heavily contaminated with PCBs. I continue to argue why isn't it from GE, but that's just me. We're trying to verify all that stuff though. There is some previous testing that was done by Time Bond, the previous engineering consultant we had. I'm actually waiting for the results from them on that, but that will be part of our package and part of another grant application that we would like to make for cleaning of that area in itself. But my understanding is we can separate that area from the rest of the site. It doesn't have to go with this part of the site. And then the final thing, we've also engaged TRC Services to at least initiate a study of, I'm going to call them the AOCs, the original 24 AOCs that were identified on the property, AOCs being areas of concern that existed on this site, basically known contaminants. You have an oil tank in the ground, it leaked, it's caused some contamination. Although they cleaned up the contamination in general, we still need to now verify for closure purposes and transfer property, transfer acts. So if we want to transfer this property to somebody, we have to verify that those areas have been cleaned to the standard that they are. They have to document that in the report at the end of the project. So there's 24 of those. They've identified 4 other ones, mostly because they just weren't identified before because they weren't exposed. With the slab, removal, those do get exposed, and they do have to be considered as an AOC at that point. They don't add a whole tremendous amount of problems to the site. We don't expect to see a lot of contaminants in those areas, but they did add 4 additional AOCs in their preliminary investigation so far, to what we would need to just investigate. So that would be, basically a study that would go throughout the entire site and verify all of the activities that were done in all 28 identified areas of concern, and document their cleanup, formalize that report to EPA and Connecticut DEP, and that would allow us to then begin transferring the site. We could do that with any part of the site. We do not have to do this on the full site. So I am talking about the global site in whole, but we can pare this down to specific areas of the site, i.e. we can just focus on the 35% area if we'd like, or some other areas that we may clean up. With that, I guess I'll open it up to questions from anybody.
When you mentioned the acid and the drain lines, and you said towards the front,
yep.
I'm just curious, don't you have to do all of them?
We do have to do all of them, but we don't have to do all of them at the same time.
Oh, okay, so you're choosing these because they're in that?
Correct, because they're exposed and we don't have to dig up other parts of the slab to get to them.
Okay.
Now, so it just makes it easier without other cleanup issues.
So they get dug up? They just got filled up?
We have to test them first and see what's really in there. Unfortunately, they didn't do a real lot of testing on these initially when they did their studies. I believe they've only taken a couple of tests inside the actual drain lines, and because they got a hit that was fairly high, I believe they just kind of assumed that they were all dirty. But part of our program would be obviously testing them and verifying what's dirty or what's not. And you're right, we can crush them in place or leave them in the ground or cap them or fill them or whatever we want to do, but if they're not contaminated. But we certainly believe that some of them are going to be contaminated.
Mike, I missed the holdup with the steel. What's the holdup with the steel?
Can I speak about that, John? No problem, or are we going to talk about that later?
What was the question? Was
question is a hold up on the steel.
Oh, okay. I think you can in limited terms.
Yeah. Basically, the test results have shown that there's paint on the steel, and as paint can be, or you're not obligated to test paint necessarily for PCBs, but we did in this particular instance. There's some higher hits than needs to be, and we're moving forward with, like I said, going through another testing protocol as to what paints are or are not contaminated, and then being able to resell them. So.
If we could show that it's below a certain threshold, then they could get, until we kind of meet that threshold. That's what we're working with.
For that particular one, the threshold is 50 parts per million.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a threshold of 50 parts per million that we need to do.
That's good.
Okay.
Right.
Mike, I do have one last question. In your estimation, as a man who's close to this subject, 2020 is the end of the time frame. You think we'll be okay by then?
We're well on our way, Katie, to being there. The biggest one, the biggest obstacle I see, long term, is the sediment contamination on the river side of the road. I think all of the rest of the site, although it's obviously it's expensive. The idea is we have some of the site clean. We have some ability to maybe start marketing some of this, and that would free up funds. We're going to talk later about funding and where we're at in terms of money. But there's obviously lots of moving parts in this particular equation right now as to how the funding's working and the grants and all. But just to give you just quick, $3.35 million has been allocated through you and through DECD for this project in some fashion or another. And that's basically all but $17,000 of that is encumbered into contracts right now or spent already. So. Basically, we've spent, give or take, about $340,000, $3,340,000, in this effort, and we still have other things that we need to do, and we also, of course, still believe that we're owed, some of that money back. So that.
But you think that the sediment area could be separated?
Yes, we had asked that question a few years ago, and I am told that that's the case. So.
Sure, Jessica.
And the 312 that you're going to get back, did you say that would cover the remaining items, or you're just hopeful that it's going to cover those remaining?
I'll go back in the order I said them. We would prefer to do it in this order. Clean up of the soil in the woodshop area. That's frankly it's the cheapest of the three, by the way. But it solidifies all the surface contaminants, throughout that whole 35% area that's shown in that map. The second would be to remove any drain and acid lines underneath that particular area of the slab, and then expand that slab area, removal of the slab as far as we can get. We could do it in combination of slab and under drains, or subsurface lines, or we could just remove slab and forget about the drain lines. So we have kind of combinations of things that that we can do depending on the amount of funds that we have left. But that would be the goal, or the 3 goals that we'd be looking at trying to get with that 312. I don't think we'll get much further than that.
And the soil across the road would be a separate grant that you would need
Correct.
going.
Yeah, that would be a whole separate application, whole separate procedure for cleaning it up. And frankly, a big debate on whether it's, I'm not an expert at that kind of cleanup, but you start disturbing areas and rivers like that, and there's good and there's bad in it. And GE, as you may or may not know, but I mean, up in Massachusetts, had just gone through the same exact procedure under the the whole cleanup standard that they had to do, and they decided their focus was going to be on the first mile and a half from the GE plant up in Pittsfield, as to where they were going to clean the river, and they frankly aren't going to do any more cleaning beyond that because the offsetting environmental impacts are greater than the value they're going to get from the actual cleanup. So we have to figure out what's in the soils first, and then determine if it's to our advantage or not, both environmentally and economically, to move forward with that kind of project.
And does that affect the river walk at all? Because I remember when we went back, when we were walking where you were looking to do that trail, you were looking to do it in that area, were you not? I mean, something similar to putting it, kind of doing a trail that you have by Young's Field. So
it would cross through that part of the property. If it was off-road at that point, it would cross through that part of the property, yes.
We're hoping it would go through one of the island, which is
the middle
below
of the...
that. But essentially, the discharge of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Wargo.
I understand the GE, that's PCBs directly into the water due to their processes.
Correct.
Over a long period of time.
Yes.
The only PCBs that would enter into the area that you're talking about would be incidental, because the PCBs were spilled. They weren't in the process of any metal or any workings. So it would be accidental spill. And it would have to find its way from the corner of the building out there and into the soils. It's hard to believe that the PCBs in that soils are our PCBs and not GE's.
I won't disagree with you.
They'd have to prove.
Well, there's a couple of different ways that we can do that, and I'm learning a little bit more about it as I go through the process here. There's about 8, maybe 9 different auricores that are identifiable, which are basically reportable types of PCBs, and different types or different numbers indicate different types of PCBs that would be used. We know what we have in the building. We know what we had in the concrete. We know what the building contains in terms of the auricores. Typically speaking, they were either 1268s, 1260, and 1248, I believe, were the 3 main or predominant ones that existed in many of the test results that we've seen. If something different is in the river, then obviously there's a whole different, a whole different equation that comes out into play. If they happen to be similar, it doesn't necessarily mean they're from our building, but they may have to do some other testing to determine that, or determine where it came from. But I agree with you. I think that has to be certainly investigated as part of our protocol. We need the test results from time on, to really start assessing that and understanding what the contaminants are over there. I also believe there's as I understand it at least, there's heavy metal contaminants there. Now, I haven't verified, I don't know, I haven't seen the test results, so I don't know exactly what's there, but I am told that heavy metals would be there. There was 3 outfall structures that were AOCs. 2 of them have been cleaned. The 2 to the Aztec River have been cleaned. The 1 to the Houstonic is not.
Fair enough. So, thank you so much, Mike. It continues to move forward, and
Sure.
we're starting to get into the phase 2 where we kind of plan for the property as well, and depending on, if a piece of the property is going to be transferred, that kind of dictates the level. But if it's not going to be transferred, we talked about, Public Works maybe going there, then it's a lesser level of cleanup.
Well, I should, the mayor mentions a great point, and one of the things, we looked at in determining this scheme is if Public Works were to keep any of the property, or the town of Milford was to keep any of the property, we had always planned to keep in the backside of the property, roughly the back third of the building and beyond to the Aztec River. We're talking about property transfer and the standards for property transfer. Same standards do not exist should we keep the property. we do not have to clean it up to that same standard. We can cap it. You know, we're not selling at that point. It's not, if we were to cap it and try to sell any part or any piece of the property, we would have to do what's called an environmental land use restriction. Did I get that right, John?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to put a restriction on the buyer that they need to, one, know that there's contaminant there, two, they can't do anything physically to it without cleaning it up. They have to go through an EPA approval, they have to do that. Obviously, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but when you're negotiating a property deal, that's clearly going to affect the value of property that you can negotiate. So the less restrictions we have on it, the more saleable and the more obviously marketable and certainly more valuable the property is from a sales standpoint. But if the town of New Milford's keeping it, those same standards do not exist, and all we have to do is encapsulate this portion. So overlaying that slab, and that's thin asphalt, concrete, something like that, can make it a perfectly usable site for the town of New Milford, because we're not looking to transfer it anyway. So
there's a little more options.
Yeah, a couple more options that are available. I think I appreciate the mayor bringing up that point, because it's something to keep in mind as to what how we were thinking when we decided to start marching forward with removal of the slab. Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good understanding of what's going on. You won't see a whole lot of work happening out there unless or until we get EPA approval, and hopefully you will see some of those steel piles removed at that point in time. Once that happens, that probably would be the last big physical thing that you really see happening out there for a while.
Either way, it's amazing progress, and I can't say how much time and effort Mike has spent on this issue. It has not been easy with EPA and on all the kind of different regulations. So thank you, Mike and John, and TRC has been doing an amazing job too. All right. We're going to add one thing, though. Do you want to add that before we go into executive session? So I'll entertain a motion to add an item. I forgot to, we just got the information recently. Add an item for an easement, for the town to grant an easement allowing septic at 100 Boardman Road. Do I have to identify we're the property owner.
I think that the property, this location is sufficient.
Okay. And just to give you a little background, so, up at Boardman Bridge where, do the parking for Sega Meadows, there's a house up there on the corner. Apparently the town owns a portion where this residential house is. They're in the process of selling that house, and apparently their septic system is in the portion that the town owns. So the easement would allow them to transfer the property, and what I've suggested is let's just give it to them as well. I mean, there's no reason for the town to have that portion of the property, and what I would charge them is whatever our legal fees would be to kind of, handle the closing, to allow the septic to run with that piece of property. Gets it off the town's rolls, and God forbid anything happens, we don't need that kind of headache. Fair enough, John? Motion, motion.
Add it to the agenda.
Okay, so a motion to add the consideration for an easement allowing septic at 100 Boardman Road. Okay? We got a motion, Mr. Esposito. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it's been added. And now I would entertain a motion to grant the easement.
Authorized. Yeah, you execute the documents necessary.
Okay. You get that? Okay. Any further discussion? I hope I've explained it, but if you kind of imagine it, right?
Sounds fine.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
To go to executive session with John
Yep.
Tower.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do think that your motion should be amended to include the actual docket number of the case that we're going to discuss in the executive session. Can I have that for you?
Sure. What is it?
It's docket number LLI-CV-16-601-3214. And it's the case Town of New Milford versus Standard Demolition Services, Inc. Pending the Litchfield Superior Court.
Okay.
And I would ask that you essentially make your motion to be inclusive of that. And since we didn't list it on our agenda, your motion to add that case in your discussion in the executive session would need to be passed by 2/3 as well.
Oh, okay. All right, so I entertain a motion
Okay.
to add that additional language to the agenda.
So moved. You want me to read it out?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I would also ask the town council to consider inviting Mike Zarba into the executive session as well as myself.
So we're voting to add,
First, we got to add the language.
Okay, so motion to add LLI-CV-16-601-3214, Town of New Milford
Versus Standard Demolition Services.
versus Standard Demolition Services, Inc.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Okay, motion to
based
go
on
into
that language.
executive session, inviting John Tower, Mike Zarba.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. We're in executive session.